Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so let's begin. So, has everybody arrived?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, we're going to start with Angular. So, how many of you guys uh, have used JavaScript like for web development, front end work before?
Very few.
Okay, very few of them. Okay. So, like, as far as software development goes, so what kind of things you guys have worked with before, like maybe mobile development, web development, C, C++ programming? What kind of things that you guys have done before?
Then you can understand. You can understand anything. Speaker change करना देख सकते हैं speaker. Can you repeat the question once?
So I was just asking that what languages or platforms have you guys worked on before, like mobile development or web development, or maybe some,
Most of
Java-based
them,
PC apps?
most of them have basically done C, C++ coding.
Okay,
Like some of them have some idea in web development, I guess. Yeah. So some idea about web development and basics of JavaScript. That's all.
okay, okay. To begin with, AngularJS is basically a framework written in JavaScript. It is used for creating the front ends of websites. So by front end, it means like when you go to a website, the part that you are seeing. Basically, most websites are like there is going to be a front end part which is like all the stuff that you are seeing, the user interface and everything, and there's going to be a backend part which is going to run on the server where there is going to be the database and all kinds of say your transactions are taking place. So Angular is used to create the the front end part. JavaScript is a pretty old language and is actually the only way you can create web frontends because browser side scripting is JavaScript is the only major language that is supported by almost all major browsers. So uh, Now, JavaScript has been used like in its raw form for quite a long time. You guys you have used maybe JavaScript, a lot of you have used or seen being used. It's, for example, you can just in your HTML page, you can just say include a JavaScript file. Say you can include something .myscript.js, and in that script you can say do a lot of things like when you click a button, the color of the button changes or stuff like that. So JavaScript has been there, and there has been a lot of frameworks and libraries being built on JavaScript to help these things. Um, Especially if you have worked, if those of you who have worked with JavaScript might be knowing about something called Jquery. Jquery is basically one of the most famous JavaScript libraries. And some estimates say that more than half of the websites use jQuery in some form of the other. So jQuery makes it even easier to use JavaScript. For example, if uh, you have to find out a particular element by ID or by class name in your HTML, and you need to change the color of it or something like that. What this jQuery helps in is you can select it very simply with a something like a $ brackets, and inside that bracket you just write the name of the class that you want to select. So jQuery has been there for quite some long time, and of late there have been some more app-like frameworks which have come. Like there has been Angular, which is coming out from the stable of Google, and there has been React, which is backed by Facebook, and similarly there is Ember, there is a lot of such JavaScript libraries. So what they are trying to do is basically bring in a bring in a set of rules, a set of styles, a particular way in which a web app can be made. So the way we call things has changed. What we used to call, we did not have this word called web apps before. We used to say websites. So now we are coming to a new paradigm where we are calling them web apps, because there are, for example, have you guys used Flipkart from Chrome on an Android? So if you have used Flipkart on Chrome on Android, you'd see that although it's like you go to a website, you go to m.flipkart.com, but it acts very much like an app, just like your mobile apps. So web apps are like the new thing. They have got components in them. The UI is, they have got sliders, and there are different pages. Like the part of the page can be loaded, reloaded, refreshed without changing other parts. So these kind of things are happening, and that's why there are frameworks like React and Angular, which are helping create web apps like this. So, what we'll do is, let's start by quickly checking out how we can just start with an Angular project. Okay. Um, so, if you could unmute from that side, just wanted to know that how many of you have your laptops along with you, and you could actually do what I am explaining here.
What did you ask? Can you repeat once?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, how many of you guys have laptops or some development machine with you? You
Most
can
of them have.
follow.
Most of them have.
Okay, most of you have. So what operating system most of you are running? I guess Windows.
Linux, Windows also. Few Windows as well.
Few Windows as well. Okay. So to just try out Angular, the thing is, when we work with more complex Angular apps, we will need to install Angular into our system. But if you want to make a very simple, let's say something like a hello world program in Angular, what you can do is, let's see, just a second. I'll just share my screen with you. Um, okay, is that visible? My screen is visible to you guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, for example, I just have this simple folder out here, and let me just add a simple HTML file here. Let's call it index.html, and yeah,
Please increase the font size a little bit.
yeah, it's visible to you guys now.
Visible as a- Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is like your a basic HTML page. There is your head and the body. So what we have done is, just if you want to try out Angular, you can include Angular from the web itself. You can use script src Angular from ajax.googleapis.com/ajax. So this is a CDN, the content delivery network, and Angular is always available. So if you use this, you need to have internet on your on whichever machine you're browsing, because include the Angular source from the internet live while rendering. Okay, and let's see how it looks like. Um, yeah, so you can see the website here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this was the code that I had written right across here, and this is what it does. So if I write Arnav here, it says hello Arnav. So now let's go back once again to the code and see how exactly that's being done. Okay. Um, So this is a very basic feature of Angular that I'm going to explain here is you can see here it's written ng model equal to your name. Okay. Am I audible? Hello. Saptak, are you there?
Yeah, yeah, continue.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So like I'm saying, so this is for example, let's just see this thing. We will go on and try to understand what a model view controller kind of architecture is and all that. But before that, let me just explain this simple way this Hello World app works. Is you have this simple element called ng model inside your input tag. Okay, um, and then you can see here we have used double braces, and inside that we have written your name again. So this particular thing is called two-way data binding. Okay, so it's something which is Angular is very famous for is two-way data binding. So this ng model is something that's in your javascript code. Okay, it's a variable that's going to be in your javascript code. So when you define ng model equal to your name inside an input, it means whatever you're going to write inside that input box is going to be assigned to a variable called your name, and this variable is in your javascript. Okay, and now you want that javascript variable to be visible on your html page, so you use this templating is this double braces templating is called mustache templates. So it uses the same format as mustache templates in Angular, and whatever you write inside your double braces, if you put a variable name, for example your name inside double braces, what Angular will do is it will put the value of that variable inside in that a place. So again, if you go to the website and you see what I'm meaning when I'm writing anything here, it means this particular text is getting assigned to the variable called your name, and the value of that is getting back here. So and that happens in real time. Like you don't need to what Angular helps here is compared to raw javascript is, for example, in raw javascript you need to put a listener on every time the text is changed. You are going to update it from the input to the output. What Angular does is it helps you avoid that code, and it's going to going to monitor the two-way data binding every time you change anything, I mean, as soon as you type something here, it immediately gets updated here. So if you see the um, I think the source code part is not visible to you guys. Is this visible? This the source code here?
Yeah, more or less.
More or less. Okay. So, like you can see, although the source code that I had written here is hello double braces here, what Angular does is it's going to change it live, and here it says ASD ASD. So if I change it to this, you can see it immediately has been changed here. So this is basically how Angular makes it very easy to start writing your front end code wherever you have to link your visual elements. Basically, that's in a model, in a MVC architecture, we call it a M model view controller, or uh, in this kind of architecture, what you are seeing, basically the user is seeing in the output, that's basically called the view. So everything that's in your HTML, your buttons, your text, your colors, and graphics, and everything, all that part is your view. And your model is basically all your data elements. Okay. And so all your classes, your objects, all of that is your model. And Angular helps in joining them very easily without having to write a lot of code on your own. So we will quickly take a look at what the MVC architecture means. So basically, if you look at Angular's website, or if you find a definition of Angular anywhere, they would say that Angular is a MVW architecture. Okay, so the W in MVW stands for whatever. Okay, so the guys at Angular, they say that it's a model view whatever. So you have a model and you have a view. A view is what you see, the model is the data, and the whatever is like whatever you want to use to connect those two together. Because there are a lot of established architectures, like MVC stands for model view controller, where we have a controller. There is MVVM, where we have a model view model. So a view model is again something like what controls the data binding to your views. There is MVP architecture, which is model view presenter. So Angular says that, whatever you call that connecting code is, you can call it whatever, but Angular is MVW architecture. So you guys getting what I'm saying till now?
Yeah,
I'm saying that you guys are, I mean, understanding what I'm saying till now. So I'm just showing this thing. Uh, Very nice diagram that's present on Wikipedia's MVC page itself, which shows how basically a model view controller works. So the you are the user, which is at the bottom, that circle, and where the view is what you're going to see. The controller is going to work every time you interact with the web app. You enter something, you press a button, or whatever you do, you are interacting with the controller. So what the controller does is it manipulates the model. It means manipulating the model means changing the data. I mean, whatever data was there, it's going to change that data. So that's manipulating the model. uh, that will lead to updating of the view. So if you look at that in terms of what we just made, uh, so this hello world written here, this is the view. Every time I'm putting an input into this box, the controller is working and it's updating the variable called your name, which is the model. And that model, again, I'm coming back and I'm seeing it. Okay, you're able to understand that? So let me yeah, yeah, say.
No, no, nothing. You continue.
Okay, okay. So let me move across to basically from create a to-do list. Okay, so in the world of uh, this thing, JavaScript front-end frameworks, the most common example app that every framework shows is how to create a to-do list. Okay, so you know how what a to-do list looks like. So let me just take this thing, the code from Angular's website itself, which is okay, so this code is from basically the AngularJS.org website itself. Okay, and so what this code does is it creates a to-do list, and if you can, if I can show you that, just a second. So you can see what this looks like in action. This is a to-do list. You can add more to-dos here. Okay, you press an add, a new to-do gets added. If you press a tick mark on any one of them, that gets striked out that this to-do has been done. So this is what this piece of code does. Now let's see how it's being done. So Angular has been included just like before in the hello world. Next, in the earlier example, what we had done was we had written all our JavaScript code inside that HTML file itself because it was just 2 lines of code. Now there is more JavaScript code, so we shipped that off to a file called todo.js, like you can see here, and this is the JavaScript file. So we're going to include that, and we now have our own CSS file as well because we need to like every time one to do is being done, we want to strike that off. So for that we have this CSS file text decoration line through for toto done. Okay. So now we have included everything. What we do is we
The code isn't visible.
the code is not visible. Like I need
No,
to increase the size.
no, no, actually, we can't see the sublime text here. Means whatever
Uh,
editor you're using, that it shows
oh,
the
okay, okay,
browser
okay.
still.
Okay, okay, okay. Just a second, just a second. Let me do that. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's visible now?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. So yeah, like I was saying, so this is the index.html. The head, as you can see, it's including Angular like before. It's including todo.js and it's including todo.css, right? Then mm, we so here we have like moved our JS source code out this, and there's the CSS file with the line through text decoration. And now we use something called a controller here. So this controller is defined something like this. What we do is we define a Angular module. So your app is basically called as a module. Okay, so your Angular is has a modular architecture. So your main app is a module, and then you can have different modules for different parts of your app. So first we create an Angular module. Okay, now this particular coding style, if it is not like, are you able to understand line number 4 and 5? Basically it means that if you do something like this, var angular dot okay, so for example, so basically Angular, when I call angular dot module, it returns an Angular module, and then basically I can add a controller dot, like my app dot controller, and I can add a controller like this. So this whole thing is written in a shorthand notation in this code. So the variable has not been explicitly defined. They are just creating that variable here and adding the controller to it. So controller, just like I show you in the model view controller architecture, is where the code which controls the relationships between your model and your views are going to reside. Okay. So you define a controller like this, an Angular module, then dot controller. Then you give the name of the controller, and then you start this function. And inside this function body, you basically write all the code, all the actions that you need to perform. Okay. So I create a module named to do app. Then I add a controller called to do list controller inside it. Inside that, I add a couple of functions. So there is one function called add to do, which is going to be called if I want to add a new to do. There is a remaining function which finds out how many to dos are remaining, and there is an archive function which is for archiving the to dos. Then by default, first I add these two to dos to to-do list dot to dos. Okay, it's an array of objects. So the first object is learn Angular. The second object is build an Angular app. Okay. Now this you can see here, this acts like okay. How many of you have done object oriented programming before, out of those present there?
Most of them.
Most of them have. So you guys know the concept of this, right? When you are using a class, you can use this dot something. Do you guys understand that concept?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Okay. Good. So using this means, so this refers to to-do list controller, and how this helps is basically when I am using something called this. You can see this to-do list dot add to do.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is where this variable is going to help is uh, we assign this controller a variable. You can see ng controller, and we use this notation which is a little different from conventional JavaScript. It is used in Angular, and it's called the as notation. So we have taken to-do list controller as to-do list. So this means that it is going to create an object of to-do list controller and call it to-do list. Okay, so this is similar to Java or C++ code, which is like to-do list equal to new to-do list. Okay, so this line is not valid JavaScript. I'm just giving you an example of what this line means. Okay. Now all these functions which are assigned, so here I do this thing, I assign this to to-do list, and all these functions that are inside to-do list dot add to-do list dot, meaning I can call these functions as to-do list dot archive like this here, and to-do list dot add to-do like this here. Okay. Now as you can see, what it does is, first of all, there is this is the list of to-dos, right? This is the form, which is basically the form where I am submitting a new to do. This is the input box where I am adding a new to do. Then this button, and uh, Angular allows you to use this tag inside a form. This is called ng submit equal to some name of a function. So what it does is, whenever you click the submit button of this particular form, it will call this function, right? And here's what that function does is, it is going to push a new object, to do list dot to do text, and done equal to false. It's going to push that to the list of to dos. Okay. Similarly, whenever now this thing you already I think saw in action here. Let me just share that. So when I'm doing this, this is the function add to do is being called. Okay. Now, how is this list being showed? So this is very interesting. Again, Angular has a nice little thing called ng repeat. So as you can see here, ling repeat. So this means that if I add a tag called ng repeat to any HTML element in Angular, what happens is it is going to create something like a for loop, and it's going to repeat that particular tag as many times this thing works. So there is inside ng repeat, I add to do in to do list dot to dos. So it's going to check this variable here, and by default, when I first time load the screen, it's going to run it two times because there are two objects in there by default. And inside this list, I can use this variable to do, and using that I can find out its inner objects. So every to do has two variables inside it. There is a string called text, and there is a boolean called done inside it. So I'm using them here. I'm creating a checkbox, and in a checkbox, if I assign a ng model, if I assign a boolean ng model, then automatically, if it is true, the checkbox will come out to be checked. If it is false, the checkbox will come out to be unchecked. And then I am basically writing this thing again, that mustache like notation. As you can see here, I am binding this variable to to-do.text here, which will show up here, like the text is getting shown up here. So you guys able to understand this, how this thing is done, how a to-do list is generated using Angular? Any doubts in this thing till now?
Does anyone have some doubt? Yeah? क्या doubt है?
Like any questions that you want to clarify out of this, or anything you felt I missed explaining, you want something else explained inside this, in this whole code?
Does anyone have some doubt which you want to clarify or something like which you didn't understand or you want to repeat something like that? Did you understand anything? Respond something yes, no, very good. Something समझ में आ रहा है कोई क्वेश्चन है तो you understand? Okay, can you repeat the entire concept once again, like in brief?
Yeah, yeah. The thing is, if you guys have your laptops, you can actually try this code out from here. You can go to angularjs.org, and here under this heading called add some control, you will find the code of these three things: index.html, todo.js, and todo.css. Okay, so you open up any folder anywhere and create these three files: index.html, todo.js, and todo.css, and just paste the code that's present here in these three, and you can just open your index.html in Chrome or Firefox or something, and you'll be able to see how this is working. So just a second, yeah. So let me just explain to you once again how this works. So you guys had understood how the hello world thing was working, right? Anybody had any problems with that one?
Any problem with hello world? Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, so hello world everybody was able to understand, right?
Yes.
Okay. So again, what we're doing is here. Let me just explain once again the concept. So these things, I guess you got it. I'm including the Angular source code and the to-do and the to.css, the style sheet, everything. Then I start my body here. So the way we work in Angular is we define the name of the module which is going to control which is basically representing my HTML page here. I call HTML ng app is equal to do app. Okay. It means that everything that I write inside this HTML refers to the Angular module to do app here. Okay. There can be multiple modules in the whole app. This HTML page particularly is represented by the to-do app module. Okay. Now, then any element inside the HTML, a div, a body, or anything can be assigned a controller. So you assign a controller like this: div ng controller, to-do list controller as to-do list. So when you call as, it means you create a new instance of to-do list controller and you assign that to the variable to-do list. Again, like I had given you an example of C++ or Java code, it's like to-do list equal to new to-do list controller. It's something like this. Okay. So this line of code is this is how you do it in C or C++. In Angular, you do it like this. Now, inside that, if you want to use any variable or any function that is inside this controller, you use to-do list dot function name like this, okay? Or you use to-do list dot variable name like this. How you how the controller, the code in the controller has been defined is like this. First of all, I assign the instance of this class to var to-do list. Okay. Then I have created this thing, array of to-dos. So each to-do is basically an object which has two elements: a string called text and a boolean called done. Okay. Then I add a function called add to do. This function is going to push a new to do inside the variable to dos, right? There is a function called remaining, which is used to find out how many to dos are not done yet. There is a function called archive, which is to archive all the to dos. Now, how these are all connected to the HTML is again very simple. So there is first of all This thing I have added to-do list dot remaining of to-do list dot to-do dot length, and this shows up like this. Um, 3 of 4 remaining, right? So basically, this variable, this the result of this is 3 because as you can see, there are 3 unchecked objects here. To-do list dot to-dos dot length is 4. There are total 4 lengths, and then this text comes up out there. Then there is this nice little thing that Angular provides called ng repeat, right? So ng repeat is basically like a for loop. This is a loop that runs across all the variables inside this array. So I write to do in to do list dot to dos means it is going to run as many times there are variables in this particular array. Mm, it's going to create basically an unordered list. Inside each list element, there is a input checkbox and there is a span for showing the text. The input checkbox is connected to todo.done using ng model. So what this does is ng model will automatically update the value of true or false to this checkbox. So this, if the value is true, the checkbox will automatically come out checked. Otherwise, it will come out unchecked. Then I again enter the text of todo.txt here, and finally there is this form at the bottom. I have created this form. Inside this form, there is an input box for entering the new to do text, which has been binded using ng model, as you can see here. And there is a button for submitting it, and Angular has this tag in form called ng submit. So if you call ng submit equal to some name of a function, it is going to call that function when you submit that form. So again, this function is getting called add to do, and a new to do is getting added. So and there's a CSS file is there to basically strike out the to dos which are done. So you have understood this?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we will see basically, how in a more elaborate environment you go across working with Angular. So first of all, these were simple examples, but ideally you should not use this, because this means that this you can use in a production environment where you know for sure that the user is going to have internet. But if you use script src from an http source, it means that even if you want to test it locally, you will need internet in your laptop to test it. Okay, so now we will see how we can set up a local environment where we can try out Angular without having internet connection and everything. So let me ask first of all, how many of you guys know about or heard of something called Node.js?
Very few.
Very few of you. Okay. So Node.js is okay. Node.js, you might not have heard about it. Python, you guys have heard about Python or Ruby, right?
Yeah. Yes,
Python and Ruby
Python
you're
is
familiar with. Awesome. So in Python, how do you install a new module in Python?
peep.
Yeah, pip install, correct. So just like you do a pip install in Python, similarly, Node.js has been a effort to create something like the Python or the Ruby environment for downloading JavaScript modules locally without having browser or internet, without needing browser or internet to run them. So what we do is you need to install Node. Okay, so how to do that is again, like I said in the beginning, it's not necessary to have Node.js to write Angular apps, but if you have Node, then it is much more easier to set up your project and automate a lot of your stuff. So if you go to nodejs.org, the web page that's open on your screen right now, you can see there are installers for Windows, Mac, and Linux as well. If you are on Mac or if you are on Linux, then you can install it using sudo apt-get or sudo brew install as well. Okay, right. So once you have got Node.js, then also install a thing called Bower. Okay, Bower, I think you might not have heard about it, but it's very famous for front-end framework. So as you see, the website says Bower is a package manager for the web. Uh, there are two very famous such package managers for the front end. There is JSPM, which is JavaScript package manager, and there is Bower. So you guys understand the concept of a package manager. If you have, like, if you use Linux, you have used apt-get or yum or something like that, and if you have used Mac, then you must have been using brew or something like that. So you understand what a package manager means, right? Anybody who does not understand package manager on your end?
Anyone who doesn't understand package manager. Everyone understands what a package manager is. Everyone understands.
You understand? Okay, right. So Bower helps. Bower is basically a package manager for your front end apps. It helps you install and uninstall libraries. So we will see how we can quickly set up a Angular app. Let's do this. Okay, let's remove these from here. Okay. Is my terminal visible to you guys?
Increase the font a little bit more. Font बढ़ा. Can you change the color to white?
Okay.
The text.
Sure. Uh, yeah. Okay now.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you do is basically, for example, I have got npm already installed. If you have to install Bower, you do npm install g Bower. Okay. Add sudo to it. Our on my laptop, I think is already installed anyway. So yeah, Bower is installed. Now Bower will help us easily manage all our front end libraries and dependencies. So we can start a Bower front end project like this, Bower init. Okay. If you do this, it's going to ask you a lot of questions. It's going to ask you the name of the project. I'm saying Angular 101, description, intro to Angular. My main file will be index.html, and it's none of these. I can add some keyword. It's going to create this little definition of my project just like this. Okay. Uh, yeah. So like you can see now, a bower.json file has been created, which has this simple information. So right now it does not mean anything, but what I can do is I write bower install Angular. Okay. Now you see it's going to uh, download Angular, the Angular library, and it's going to save it here. It's so now if you see, so it has downloaded Bower to this, and I have got the Angular.js file locally here. Now I don't need to include it from an HTTP source. Now I will basically create the index.html file. Okay, so when we start working with Angular, as you can see, I just made a simple HTML file here, included Angular, and I included my main app, and then I created an Angular module called my app. Now, this part is very important. If you instead of this, if you try write this, for example, it will be so. What these two lines do is this line defines a new, and this line, so is this difference clear to you guys? uh, you basically here what happens is you add your dependencies here. Like for example, right now there aren't any dependencies, but for example, let me show you a project, an Angular project that I and Saptak have worked on. For example, this is an open event project, so you add all the dependencies here inside that array. Okay, but if you don't have any dependencies, then keep this array empty. But if there is only and only if there are two variables inside this constructor angular.module, then only it will create a new Angular module. If the second argument is not present, it is Angular is just going to find a module present called my app. If it's not present, this whole statement is anyway worthless. So always remember that even if you create a Angular module which does not have any dependencies, you need to add an empty array here. So now I have created this array. In this, I want to add a utility controller. In will do. I just call it. So this is how I define a controller. Okay. Now, uh, just a sec.
Change the color to black on white on Sublime as well.
On Sublime as well. Okay. This is better.
Yeah, better.
Just a second. There should be some. Okay, anyway, I don't have most of my themes are dark only, so this is the only light one I have. Okay,
It's okay.
so first thing that you should do is, some Angular examples that you will find is they use something called this thing scope. So ideally, try to avoid doing this. So scope is basically uh, the scope is actually the scope. So what scope means is basically if you have a class directly defined inside a raw JavaScript file, its scope is the whole window of the browser. Then you can create a class inside that class, and it will have a limited scope like that. So if you depend on using dollar scope like this, what happens is you often lose track of which parts of your code has access to which other part of your code. So this variable dot scope might mean a different scope in different places, right? So always try to avoid something using scope. You will see a lot of Angular apps written in a lot of examples, a lot of GitHub projects where they use scope. But instead of so people who use scope, what they do is they don't use the as notation. So what you can do is, for example, in body, you can use a you can write something like this. If you don't use the as notation, then what we were doing earlier is so say I have got something like this, and I use my controller as my ctrl, and I add a new string here, my ctrl. So this is one way of doing it. Okay. The other way, which you might find a lot of places, so you don't get confused, but is one way I don't recommend, is you can remove the as my ctrl from here, use scope here, and you don't need this anymore, and you can use. Okay. Uh, so this is not a good way of doing it. So but if you find some source code written like this, don't get confused. But this was an old way of doing it. The Angular team does not support doing this anymore. Right. So you guys can tell me what this code I just suggested to you, what this code will do.
What this code will do, that I don't tell. Simply print line like that. Where it will print hello.
Yeah, it will just print hello. That's right. Okay. So you guys have got a basic idea now of how this thing works, like how a simple app is made and how controllers are defined, right? Now, let us. Okay, before we write some more code, let me show you. the project that, for example, I and Saptak have been working on. It's a very big project, and I don't expect you to understand all of it, but to just give you an idea of how an Angular project is usually set up, and how, like, when it becomes a bigger project, there are a lot of phases. So how things work. Let me just show that to you. Okay. Um, yeah. So this is the index.html file, and this is my app.js file, and so these are basically the main things about it. Uh, Okay. Like I said, there was this thing, your Bower file that I had created in the example app that I made. So here you can see it is very simple. This is just simple, my name of the project, the homepage, the authors, some dummy information, and all that. And it include it does not have a lot of stuff here, but if you see the more of a very big project, you will see there are a lot of dependencies. So all these libraries that we are using is animate, aria, material, storage. I will describe what kind of functionality these libraries are doing. So these are added inside dependencies. Then uh, if you are using some other node modules, for example, we use gulp. Gulp is a module that helps to minify the code, reduce code and deploy it to deploy it to GitHub and all that stuff. For that we are using gulp. So all those things are present in package.json and bower.json. Then there's this index.html, which is if you will see this index.html, there is largely a lot of lines are just include codes. Okay, so there is, first of all, there is a lot of includes of libraries here. So all this stuff till here is just libraries of the libraries that we have used. Then I have included app.js. Then there is a config file, and after that, these are components. Okay, so we will see what components are afterwards, and then there is the app.js, the main app JavaScript file. Here I have defined the module called open event, which is like the parent module of everything, and all the modules that it depends on are defined here. So these are some libraries. Then these modules are our own modules. Then just like we have made a controller there, we have made a controller here. This code, if it is so I have created open event dot controller. Then this is the name of the controller. After that, this whole notation like this, it is inside the array notation. This is called dependency injection. So if my controller depends on any other variables, like it is depending on side nav, media, session storage, and all these. So if my controller depends on any other variables which are not present inside my controller, I need to inject these variables like this. And then I call my function, and inside my function, whichever all the arguments of my function, then again this var app equal to this, assigning the scope to a variable called app. And I have there's a lot of code. So before going into that, let's see this. Uh, let's take a look at the app itself. So as you can see here, the index.html file does not have a lot of things. It just has uh, the real code. If you can see, is there is a toolbar. There is a subheader, and there are a couple of columns defined, but no real data and all is defined here. right? So actually, if you guys can see the website open, the open event web app open. You guys can see that.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically inside my index.html, this top bar yellow colored, this finding Europe written here, this thing, and this sidebar on the left, only this part is defined. So what is getting showed in the center of the page, like if I select speakers, it is showing the speakers. If I select sessions, it's showing sessions, the sponsors, tracks. All of these things are not defined inside my index.html. Okay, so how exactly this thing is done. So we use a methodology called components. So this is again another thing that AngularJS brings to the table is the use of components, and this is again it's possible because AngularJS has this modular system where you can define a lot of modules and you can make modules depend on each other. So you don't need to write all of your code into one particular page. So we have this all our components inside this folder. Wait. The sidebar is, I think, very small for you guys to see. So let me just show it to you in the terminal itself. So you guys can see the structure of the app folder here now on the terminal.
Yeah.
Okay. So inside the app, I have got a folder called components, and inside components, I have written like I have folders for each component out there. Now there is a lot of different ways in which this can be done. So what there are two main ways in which people can structure their projects. So you have got, for example, your app folder, and then inside your app folder, what some people do is they create a folder called controllers. Then they create a folder called views. Then they have something like, say, I have got sessions and speakers and a lot of stuff, right? So controller.js, then they have got, say, speaker controller, and the views for them are written like this. So this is one particular directory structure that some Angular apps use. But if your app becomes very large, say you have got 20, 30 pages inside your app, what will happen? Your controllers folder will have 20, 30 controllers. Your views will have 20, 30 HTML files. And it gets a little messy because, you know, this session.html is all your how your session page looks like, and your session controller.js, this is how your session page behaves. Okay, now session controller has nothing to do with speaker controller, and session.html has got nothing to do with speaker.html. So things that are not related to each other are in the same folder, and things that are related to each other are in different folders. So if it becomes a large project, then this kind of a structure becomes a little messy. So these days, a lot of Angular developers, a new kind of structure that they suggest is using something like this. You create a folder called components, then you create sessions inside this, you create speakers inside this, and then you add your stuff here. You add your sessions controller and your session view. Okay, and you do similarly for speakers like that. You got the idea. So when you're making an Angular app, try to follow this kind of a structure. It helps maintain large and complex projects more easily. So now, as you can see it, we have for each page we have for example, for map we have got a map controller, we have got a map.html, and like that. Now what Angular provides is complete modularity, as in, if you check out this thing, for example, the map controller and the map.html. So, this particular controller and HTML, they do not depend on any other component, and I can directly port this map view, which is like, for example, this is what the map page does. It shows the map and it shows the address like this. So I can take this folder and put it inside some other Angular app as well, and it will work very easily with that. It is not so the maps. Only the particular HTML that this part is showing. Okay, from say this map area and this whole box. Like, let me just. Okay, so this, as you can see the highlighted area.
Yeah.
You can see the blue highlight, right? So only that part of that HTML code is present inside my map.html. Okay, and the rest of the other code here and all these stuff, these are all coming from my index.html, right? So only this particular div is defined inside my map.html, and I have defined the map controller here. And so when I am working on my map, I don't need to think about the rest of my app at all. I don't need to think about sessions, speakers. Even I don't need to think about my index.html, anything at all. I have created this leaf grid is basically used to create the map, and then there is this address controller which shows the address. This is the code of my map controller. My map controller defines how the map will work here, and then how the address is shown here. Very similarly, you can see something like, for example, the sponsors. So let me show you the sponsors. So this is the HTML code for the sponsors. Then there is the controller code for the sponsors and all of these stuff. Now, how are these things all stitched together in my app is I have created uh, you can see this thing called a div called UI view. You guys can see this div, right? Div called UI view. Okay. So this is a functionality provided by a Angular module called UI view. So what UI view does is I create a UI view like this, and then what I define is inside my sidebar. So if you guys are able to see this, what this UI view module helps doing in Angular is you can define a div called UI view, and then you can create a UI sref like this. Then every time you click on UI sref element, it is going to load all the views and the controllers assigned to sessions inside the div that we have created here. Okay. So my index.html, what I do is in this whole central area, I just have an empty div here in this whole area. And every time I click on anything on the left sidebar, that HTML and that controller is loaded here. Okay. So, if you guys have done app development, then this helps you relate to it much easily. So, all of your stuff is very modular in nature. So, if you guys have written web pages which are single page apps, like a single HTML page which has all the code, then a single JavaScript page which has all the code and all that. So that is a very messy way to do it. Instead, what Angular helps you do is you can say separate all the components differently, and you can create a UI view or NG view. So inside those views, you load each component whenever you need them and unload them whenever you do not need them. Okay. Now, this part, all of it you might not have understood, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how a large Angular project is handled. Okay, uh, there's a lot of code that goes inside it, and a lot of HTML files, a lot of JavaScript files. But the advantage is each particular component has very little dependencies on anything else, and there is very little code inside each component. Like the map component has just like 20 lines of HTML code, and it's done. Okay. Now let's come back to the app that we were making. Okay, so guys, tell me something. Till now, what I have explained about Angular, the thing is, I mean, you understood how a controller works and that we can have different components. Any kind of doubts till now about how Angular works, like the basics of it? I mean, if you did not understand any thing inside this open event app, that's fine because that's a bit of a complex project. But in the basics of Angular, is there anything that you did not understand, like how is this thing working, or how does this thing link to that thing, and all that? Any kind of confusion or doubt you have regarding how the basics of Angular are wired together? So I'd like to address that first.
Any doubts about the basics of Angular, like controller component? You have understood all the words? Yeah, you can proceed.
Okay, okay.
You
So
have understood.
okay, so let's do this. You guys, can you like implement this thing on your own first? This basic app that I made, just Hello World. Like, how many of you did the Hello World app or the to do list app? How many of you tried that out on your laptops? Did every one of you try that out?
Did anyone try Hello World or to do list? Okay, so go ahead and try it also. You don't need to have the library. You can just put this link.
Yeah, so if the thing is, if you don't have Bower or something or npm, or you don't want to install it right now, you can still use mm, the Google API's link like this. Okay, you can just do instead like this one. Okay, so if you don't want to install Bower, or you can't install Bower, remove that, and you can always. You can just get this from ajax.googleapis.com, and this one will work as well. Okay, so if you can actually try this one out, just make a basic Angular app which shows a hello world or something like that. It would be better that way if I go forward, because it's very essential to have uh, the basics still now clear, because before we move on to see how, say for example, directives work or something like that.
We will make that hello world at the to-do list.
Toolbar. Like This is the code of app.js, by the way, if anybody wants to like, see this. So you guys are able to get this engine?
Everyone has done this. Made a answer, right? Yeah. Okay, you can continue. They have made it. Means this one. Hello, hold up.
Okay, okay, okay. Just a second. Okay, so let us uh, see then how say the next thing that another thing that Angular has is called directives. Okay, so when we are making components, then one nice way to make it is via directives. So again, I'm going to just show the code of directives, the example code that's also present on AngularJS.org. If you need the code, I can get it there. AngularJS.org, you will find create components part. So. Okay, so this code is up here. Let's just check this how basically directives work. So what are directives is um, directives is uh, a way to define your own HTML elements. Okay, now see what happens is you are using a contact card a lot of times inside your web app. Okay, then the name, the picture of a person, the name of a person, and all that. Like on your mobile app, mobile or something, you have got V cards of contacts and all that. So that is a reusable component. So every time you want to use a card of your contact, you don't want to re-implement the whole HTML and JavaScript code for it. So how it would be nice if you could have a HTML component, just like you have got HTML components called head, body, div, and all that. How about you had a component called contact card? Okay, so every time you have a component called contact card, and inside it you will have certain configurable, say, elements, let's say name or something. So, for example, if it would be awesome if you could have something like contact card and name equal to Arnav, say, and telephone number equal to something, right? And if you are able to define something like this would be awesome, right? Because how the card looks like and all that is would be common. Every time you want to make a contact card, you do something like this. You just change the name and the telephone number, and you will have a contact card. Now, this is possible via the this thing directives in Angular. Okay, so let's see this particular code here, as you can see, and let me show how it looks like in front. Oh, okay. So you can see there are two tabs. One called localization. It shows the date, currency number, pluralization. Okay, there are these two tabs out here. Okay, and this is how this code looks like. So what we have here is we have got four files: the index.html, our app.js file. Okay. Uh, then we have a file called components.js, which creates directives, and we have just imported Bootstrap 2.4 for the styling of the tabs. Now, now there is some, as you can see in this code, you see an element called tabs and an element called pane. Okay, so by default in HTML, tabs and pane do not exist, isn't it? So, what tabs and pane is doing here is, you see, in your components, we have defined directive. Just like we had controllers, there is something called directives. Now, you call a directive and you give a name of a directive. Now, as soon as you do this thing, what happens is you have created a HTML component called tabs. Now, inside that, there are various configurations. For example, if you use restrict E, it would mean this directive can be only used as an HTML element. then this directive can have its own controller. Okay. Um, yeah. So this directive can have its own controller, and this inside this function we can have. There is a function called select, a function called add pane. Then there is a template which is going to be returned. So there, you define a template like this. Either you can define it like this directly here, or you can do is you can import a HTML file. Like you can use a template equal to and an HTML file here. Okay. No, here we are just directly written down um, the whole text of the HTML file here. Then there is another directive called pane, and here you can do this thing called required tabs, which means that pane this is a pane requires the instance of tabs, because if you see this line, it uses the add pane function. The add pane function is inside the tabs directive. Okay, so if you are using functions from other directives, you require that directive. Then again, this is restrict e, means it can be used only as an HTML element. It has, you define a scope, then you have a function called link, and the template of each pane is here. Okay, this is simply div class tab pane, just that. Now there are these two directives are made, so now you can use these HTML elements called tabs and an HTML element called pane. And inside, so I have created two panes. One pane is called localization and another pane is called pluralization. And inside localization pane, it shows the date, currency and number in the in whatever locale that my Firefox is running or my browser is running. So it will show like this. It in the currency localization means it's going to apply whatever currency symbol that is default in my operating system, and all that like that. Okay. Then there is pluralization is also just, these are just examples. Okay, it's just showing the properties that Angular has. It can localize using these pipe operators. It can pluralize. Okay, there is ng pluralize, which can pluralize words. For example, as you have seen here is um, if it is zero, it adds an s. If it is more than one, it adds an s. But if it is one, it does not add an s. So no beers, one beer, two beer, like that. Anyway, so the idea here is to show how directives work. Now, to make this components module available across your app, you need to add components as a dependency inside when you are defining your angular.module. Okay, so you define angular.module app, and as a dependency you add components. Then you create a controller called beer controller. This just adds 6 lines from 0 to 6 beers. Then it then as you can see in components, each tab has got this thing, a div called tab content, and inside this tab content, the content of the tab comes up. So now this thing works. Now, if you see the source code of this, so you're seeing Angular actually transformed the source code. There is no actual HTML element called tabs here. Like, I don't know if this font is visible to you or not, but like if I just cannot find a way to increase the font size here, but uh, like the source code of the page has got these tabs in this pane element, but when this is actually rendered in your HTML, it just creates these a div called tab. Then inside localization, it creates a list, but there is no actual HTML element called tabs or pane. That your Angular just inflates whatever is present inside that template and replaces it in place of that directive. So have you guys understood how directives work, or you want me to explain anything else inside a directive? Hello, able to hear me? So I'm just asking that have you guys able to understood directives, or would like me to explain something else inside directives?
They have understood it seems.
Okay. So till now, all this was basically the very elementary parts of Angular, but I think in for now, this is all that I think in one go, this is all that I can explain. I'm sure you will have to, go back home and try out how to make controllers, how to make directives, how to use templates before I mean there is a lot of stuff in Angular. I mean, as I had shown you this open event app that we had been working on. So that has got UI views, and it has using a lot of libraries. It's using a map, and it has got a sidebar and all that stuff. So a sidebar is used using Angular Material library. So the Angular Material library allows you to create material looking web apps. There is a lot of stuff around that, but yeah, if I get into that part, it would become very confusing for you guys, I guess. So as far as I mean, because most of you did not know about Angular at all. So for now, this would be a lot if you go and actually try making this and just using simple things like controller and directives. Although they are the basics, they are almost everything. Like if you know how to use controllers and directives inside Angular and templates, these are the basic building blocks. You will be able to build pretty complex web apps using these things itself. There is a third thing called factories. So factories are, whenever you need services and factories. So this one needs if you want to do some work in the background. For example, if you want to fetch some data from a backend server, or you want to update some data in a database, for that you can use factories and directives. Factories and directives is something, maybe we can take that up in another session, maybe some weeks down the lane, I guess. Isn't it, Saptak?
Yeah. So I think it's enough for today, right? You are done with today, right? Hello?
Yeah, for today, I think this is good enough. I would love to hear if there are any doubts, anything else somebody wants to learn about, not just Angular, in general about web development. If anybody has any questions, I would love to answer that. But about Angular, I would just keep this only because it has already been a lot of data for everybody.
Which is a better framework? If someone is asking me, Ruby on Rails or AngularJS?
Okay, so let's try to understand it this way. You can use Angular with Ruby on Rails. Now, why I will tell you. Ruby is a server-side framework. Ruby is not a front-end framework. Okay, so if you try to understand it this way, you cannot host a Ruby on Rails app unless your system allows Ruby installation. Okay, but Angular is something that will run on the user's browser. It won't run on your server. Okay, so the code is not going. The code is only going to run when the user actually views it. So a lot of people have built Angular apps which are generated by Ruby apps. So Ruby is going to generate the HTML, JS, and the CSS code, but the Angular code is what is going to actually run on your browser when the user views it.
Any other example?
Yeah.
Any other question? Someone is asking why is Angular better than other frameworks in front end?
Why is Angular better than other frameworks? Okay, so you know, if you just search on the website about which is the best framework, I mean, most experts will give you the answer that it depends on what kind of thing you are building. I mean, Angular is not the best for all use cases. Angular is good for some use cases. There are other frameworks which are good for some use cases. One thing I feel that Angular is really good at is and it can be a drawback also, is Angular is very opinionated. So Angular says that if you want to do something in the library, use a service. If you want to create new web components, use directives. If you want to have a MVC kind of framework, then use controllers. So it it puts you in a place where you know that, okay, a lot of times what happens is you start with basic JavaScript or something like that, and you want to make a call to the backend. You don't know whether I should use Ajax or whether I should use synchronous request. I mean, there are so many ways to do a lot of things, but Angular gives you, Angular does not give you too many options. It says that you want to do this, you will do it this way. So that makes Angular development very cohesive in nature. I mean, and if you are an Angular developer, it will be very easy for you to start working on another Angular project, because the way an Angular project is made is not very different. In that way, it's very similar to how Android or iOS development works. There are specific ways to do specific things that makes people stick to certain coding styles, which makes all Angular code very uniform.
Any other question? I didn't get it. What's new in Angular? Okay, what's new in Angular 2.js?
Okay, so Angular 2 is so there is not anything new in Angular 2. Angular 2 has been rewritten for modern times, really. Okay, so Angular 1 and Angular 2 are very, very different. So first of all, when Angular 1 came out, and since then, now between these times, what has happened is two major things have happened. The web has become very mobile in nature. So if you build fast and responsive websites, which are like, you don't on mobile, people are not reloading or opening tabs or something like that. People want, you want to click on a button, stuff happens immediately for you. So that is one of the needs, and for that, what has come up very recently, two new web technologies have come up. One is called web components, and the second is called shadow DOM. So these are very related to each other. What happens is, if you look at the source code, I mean, if you look at how HTML is rendered, everything from body, div, span, all of these have got hundreds and hundreds of invalid elements, okay, like height, width, src, include, and all of these. So these make the default html elements very bulky in nature. So for example, you want, like I was showing how you can make a contact card. Sometimes you want html elements which do not have unnecessary tags, but they have some very useful tags. For example, the contact card thing, you can add some custom tags called Arnav and phone number and like that, and you don't need the other elements. So those things are something, it's called the shadow DOM. So those things, these kind of DOM elements, they do not have hundreds and hundreds of tags in them, which makes them very lightweight in nature and which makes pages very responsive. So Angular 2 is using web components, it's using a shadow DOM. So that makes Angular 2 very fast. Secondly, Angular 2 is trying to take advantage of another thing, is the advent of ES6, or as it's called, ECMAScript 6, which is the new version of JavaScript that has come up in 2015-16. It's going to roll out more and more. So this new version of JavaScript has got real object-oriented coding. It has got new notations. It can import parts of a code. Earlier in JavaScript, you could import a whole file. Now in the new version of JavaScript, ECMAScript 6, you can import parts of a particular code. So that makes it much more like Python or Java or something like that. So Angular 2 is using ECMAScript 6, and it's using Shadow DOM. That makes it modern, makes it fast, and makes it very suitable for mobile development.
Any other question? Yeah, so they have no other question. Thanks for the webcast and all. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was I hope it was a good experience for all of you, and you guys continue with web development and all other kinds of development. You can become expert Angular developers yourself as well.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Have a nice day, everybody.